I want you to think about something for a moment. Imagine working for 5 years on something. 5 years of early mornings and late nights. 5 years of skipping vacations and missing birthdays and pouring every single drop of yourself into your work. And then imagine watching someone else walk into a boardroom, present your idea as their own, receive a standing ovation, get promoted to vice president, while you sit at your desk outside and hear the applause through the glass wall. That someone was my boss, and that idea was mine. My name is Layla. I am 32 years old, and what my boss did to me on a Wednesday morning in October was the most calculated professional betrayal I have ever witnessed in my life. But what I did about it, that is the part she never saw coming. Let me tell you who I was before all of this happened, because I think it matters. I grew up in a working-class family. My father was a factory worker, my mother cleaned offices at night, neither of them went to college, but they worked themselves to exhaustion every single day so that I could. I was the first person in my family to get a university degree, then a master's degree in business strategy. I graduated with honours both times. I was not lucky. I was not privileged. Everything I had I earned with my own hands and my own mind and my own relentless refusal to give up. I joined Meridian Consulting Group at the age of 26 as a junior strategy analyst. It was a prestigious firm, competitive, high pressure, the kind of place where your work either spoke for itself or you disappeared quietly within 6 months. My work spoke for itself. Within 2 years I had been promoted twice. I was known in the office as someone who could solve problems that other people gave up on, someone who saw patterns and opportunities where everyone else saw dead ends. I loved my job with my whole heart. And then I met Sandra. Sandra Chen was appointed as head of strategy 18 months after I joined the company. She was 41 years old, polished, articulate, impressive in meetings in the way that certain people are impressive, all surface confidence and carefully chosen words. When she arrived, she made a point of introducing herself personally to every member of the team. When she got to me, she shook my hand and said, "I have heard a lot about you, Layla. I'm looking forward to working with you." I was flattered. Of course I was flattered. She began to mentor me almost immediately. One-on-one meetings every week. Long conversations about strategy and business development and where she saw the industry going. She asked for my opinions constantly. She said I had the sharpest analytical mind she had encountered in years. I trusted her completely within 3 months. That was the biggest professional mistake of my life. What I did not understand then, what I understand perfectly now, is that Sandra was not mentoring me because she believed in me. Sandra was mentoring me because she had identified me as the most valuable mind in the department, and she was learning everything she could about how I thought, so that one day she could use it without me. The idea came to me on a Sunday afternoon 18 months into working with Sandra. I was sitting at my kitchen table surrounded by industry reports and market data. I had been wrestling with a problem our biggest client, a major retail corporation, had been struggling with for 2 years. Their customer retention rates were collapsing, and nobody had been able to figure out why or how to fix it. And then suddenly, the way the best ideas always arrive, everything clicked into place. I saw it. The whole thing. A completely new framework for analysing customer behaviour patterns that combined data points the industry had never connected before. A strategy so comprehensive and so precise that I knew immediately it would not just solve our client's problem. It would revolutionise how the entire industry approached customer retention. I worked on it for 4 months. Every weekend. Every evening. I built the entire framework from scratch. I created the data models. I wrote the presentation. I tested every single variable until I was certain it was bulletproof. I called it the Integrated Loyalty Architecture, the ILA framework. When I finally felt it was ready, I did what any good employee would do. I brought it to my mentor. I sat in Sandra's office on a Tuesday afternoon and I walked her through every single element of the ILA framework for 2.5 hours. She asked questions, sharp, intelligent questions. I answered every one of them. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and looked at me with an expression I now recognise as hunger, disguised as admiration. "Layla," she said, "this is extraordinary, genuinely extraordinary. I think we need to take this to the executive board." I was so proud I could barely breathe. "I will arrange the presentation," she said. "Leave everything with me." I left every document, every data model, every slide, in her hands. and I walked back to my desk, feeling like my entire career was about to change. I had no idea how right I was. 3 weeks later, on a Wednesday morning, I arrived at the office to find an unusual energy in the building. People were moving with purpose. Executives I rarely saw on our floor were walking past in groups. There was a buzz of anticipation that I could not immediately explain. I sat at my desk and opened my emails. There was nothing from Sandra about the ILA presentation. She had been slightly distant over the past 3 weeks, busy, she said, with executive-level meetings. I had not pushed. I trusted her. At 10 o'clock, the entire senior executive team and board members filed into the large glass boardroom at the end of the floor. I watched them through the glass wall from my desk, wondering what the meeting was about. Then Sandra walked in. She was dressed differently than usual, more formally. A sharp charcoal suit I had never seen before. Her hair was professionally styled. She carried a presentation folder and a laptop. She connected her laptop to the boardroom screen. And the first slide appeared. I could read it clearly from my desk through the glass wall. Integrated Loyalty Architecture, a revolutionary framework for customer retention. Presented by Sandra Chen, Head of Strategy. I stopped breathing. For approximately 30 seconds, I simply could not process what I was seeing. Then the next slide appeared, and it was my data model. My exact data model with every formula and variable exactly as I had built it. And the next slide was my customer behavior matrix. And the next was my retention algorithm. Every single element of 4 months of my work, with Sandra's name on every page, and not one mention of mine. I sat at my desk outside the glass wall and watched my boss present my life's work to the most powerful people in the company for 45 minutes. I watched them lean forward with interest. I watched them ask questions. I watched Sandra answer every question using the exact words I had used when I explained it to her in her office 3 weeks earlier. At the end of the presentation, the board gave her a standing ovation. I watched that too. Sandra emerged from the boardroom 40 minutes later, glowing with triumph. She walked past my desk and stopped. "Big day," she said brightly. "The board loved the presentation, really exciting times ahead for the department." I looked at her for a long moment. "That was my framework, Sandra," I said quietly. Her expression did not change. Not even slightly. She had clearly prepared for this moment. "The ILA framework was developed collaboratively, Layla," she said calmly. "You contributed some initial data analysis, which was very helpful in the development process. I built every single element of that framework," I said. "The concept, the data models, the algorithms, the presentation structure, all of it. You know that." "I think you may be misremembering the development process," she said, still calm, still smiling slightly. "These things are always more collaborative than we remember. You are a valued member of this team, Layla, and your contributions are always appreciated." She walked away. I sat at my desk and felt something shift permanently inside me. Not anger, not yet. Clarity. For the first time, I saw Sandra with complete and total clarity. And I understood that she had planned this from the very beginning, the mentoring, the trust building, the questions. All of it had been deliberate and calculated. She had groomed me to give her my best work. And then she had taken it. I opened my laptop, and I started building my case. Here is something Sandra did not know about me. I document everything. Every email, every meeting note, every version of every document with timestamps. It is a habit I developed early in my career, not because I expected betrayal, but because I was raised by parents who taught me that in this world, you protect yourself with evidence. "Thank you, Mama. Thank you, Baba." I spent the next 2 weeks quietly and methodically building an airtight case. I had the original files of every element of the ILA framework saved on my personal laptop, with creation timestamps going back 4 months, every version, every draft, every late-night revision. I had my emails to Sandra, attaching early versions of the framework documents. Emails with clear dates showing I had created and shared this work with her weeks before the board presentation. I had a notebook, a physical handwritten notebook, where I had sketched the original concept for the ILA framework on a Sunday afternoon, dated, in my own handwriting. I had text messages between myself and a colleague named James, a trusted friend in the analytics department, where I had described the ILA concept to him excitedly 3 months before the board presentation. His responses confirmed what I had shared and when. I had a voicemail from Sandra herself from 2 months earlier, where she said, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am for this, where she said, "Layla, your ILA concept is genuinely revolutionary. I want to make sure we present this in a way that does it full justice." Your ILA concept, in her own voice, saved on my phone. When I had everything organised, I contacted an employment lawyer named Dr. Marcus Webb. He specialised in intellectual property theft and workplace fraud cases. His assistant gave me an appointment for the following Thursday. Dr. Webb reviewed everything I brought him, every document, every email, every timestamp, the voicemail. When he finished, he looked up at me and said 3 words. "She made a mistake." Dr. Webb advised me on a 2-track approach. Track 1 was an internal complaint to the company's HR department and directly to the CEO, bypassing Sandra entirely, with full documentation of the intellectual property theft. Track 2 was a formal legal filing for intellectual property theft and workplace fraud if the company failed to respond appropriately to Track 1. We began with Track 1. I sent a formal documented complaint directly to the CEO, a man named Richard Hartley, whom I had met twice at company events, and to the head of human resources. The complaint included every piece of evidence I had compiled, every timestamp, every email, every document version, the voicemail. I sent it on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock. By Monday afternoon, I had a response from Richard Hartley's personal assistant requesting an urgent meeting for Wednesday. I walked into that meeting with Dr. Webb beside me and 47 pages of documentation in front of me. Richard Hartley was not alone. He had the company's legal team with him. The meeting lasted 3 hours. I presented every piece of evidence calmly and methodically. I played the voicemail, I showed the timestamps, I walked them through the complete 4-month development timeline of the ILA framework. The company's lawyers asked questions, I answered everyone. By the end of the meeting, the room was very quiet. Richard Hartley looked at his legal team, then he looked at me. "Miss Layla," he said, "I owe you a significant apology on behalf of this company." Sandra was placed on immediate administrative leave that same afternoon. The internal investigation took 6 weeks. The findings confirmed everything I had documented. The ILA framework was formally and officially credited to me in its entirety. Every record was corrected, every document was updated. Sandra was dismissed from the company at the end of the 6-week investigation. Her VP promotion, which had been announced internally 2 days after the board presentation, was rescinded before it was ever made public. The company made me a formal offer. They offered me Sandra's position, head of strategy. I was 32 years old. I asked for one additional thing beyond the role and the salary. I asked that the ILA framework be formally registered under my name as the creator. That every future use of it by the company, and they intended to roll it out to multiple major clients, would carry my name as its originator. They agreed immediately. The ILA framework has since been licensed to 14 major corporations. It has generated significant revenue for Meridian Consulting Group. My name is on every single license agreement. I am head of strategy at Meridian Consulting Group. I have a team of 12 analysts who report to me. I sit in the office that used to be Sandra's. I look out over the same floor where I once sat at a desk outside a glass wall watching someone steal my work. I think about that moment sometimes. Sitting at that desk, watching the standing ovation through the glass. I do not think about it with bitterness anymore. I think about it with gratitude. Because if Sandra had not done what she did, I might have stayed in that analyst role for years more. Content, comfortable, never pushing for what I was actually capable of. She forced my hand, and my hand turned out to be much stronger than either of us knew. I called my father the night I was offered the head of strategy position. He cried. My father, who worked in a factory for 30 years and never once complained, cried on the phone for 5 minutes. That meant more to me than any title or any salary or any license agreement. As for Sandra, I heard through a former colleague that she has not been able to find a position at a comparable firm since her dismissal. The industry is smaller than people think. Word travels. I feel no sympathy. She made a calculated choice to steal from someone she had deliberately built trust with. She looked at a young woman who worked herself to exhaustion for 4 months and decided that work belonged to her. She was wrong. And the most important lesson I learned from all of this is one I carry with me every single day as a leader. The people who work for you are not resources to be used. They are human beings to be developed, credited, and championed. I will never be Sandra. Not in a million years. If you are working somewhere right now and something feels wrong, if someone is taking credit for your ideas, or dismissing your contributions, or making you feel invisible, document everything. Date everything. Trust your instincts. And never let anyone make you feel that your work is worth less than it is. You built it. It belongs to you. Thank you so much for being here with Drama Hub Stories today. If Layla's story inspired you, please give this video a like and subscribe for a brand new powerful story every single day. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had someone steal your idea or take credit for your work? What did you do? I read every single comment. See you in the next story.